Our goes the family. Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully, you guys are having a great and exceptional day. It's been a minute since I've done like a monologue. If you know my channel, I'm an avid reader. I listen to podcasts. That's what I consume most of my time. Outside of me, working my business, doing sales and things of that nature, ensuring that, working on getting rental properties and and making the podcasting and all that great stuff. But you know that I am an avid reader, and I was given this book for Christmas. Nipsey Hussle, because the marathon don't stop. Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. Obviously you see him rocking the brand that I bought from his store last year because I still support the marathon brand because I believed in what Nipsey Hussle was all about. Economics, economics, economics. He accomplished more than any freaking politician accomplished within a decade of policy. So I respect action. The days of lip service is over with. So on that note, I'm going to read a couple pages from this book, and it's just mind blowing. And I'm just going to give my perspective on it, and hopefully, not only do you enjoy it, but give me your perspective in the comment section all at the same time. This is the chapter 11, exit strategy. Talking about every now and then, I think if we can get back to that black stuff instead of killing for banging and crack stuff. Nipsey Hussle, Paid Back Bullets, Ain't Got No Name, Volume 3, 2009. He says, by that point in his 3-decade journey on Earth, Nip's personal philosophy had taken him far. Revealed for most of his life by polite society as a Rolling 60s Crip and a gangster rapper, he now earned the right to exchange ideas in the public forum at the historic Nate Holden Performing Arts Center alongside a California State University professor, as a member of Los Angeles Police Commission and attorney and CNN contributor and Oscar-nominated director Ava DuVernay. On the poster for the event, a screening of DuVernay's eye-opening documentary, 13 Nipsey Hussle was identified without exaggeration as a business mogul, philanthropist, and community activist. In keeping with the marathon mindset, Nipsey would never deny the rocky road he traveled and the obstacles he'd overcome to get to this point in his life. He says if you're a young Black or Latino male, going to jail is just something you expect to happen in your life, Nipsey stated. The film gave a vocabulary to something we as young people felt and understood viscerally. We ain't naturally had the factual breakdown of it, but we felt that this gotta be set up. This can't just be all coincidence. This gotta be by somebody's design. By way of illustration, Nipsey went on to share a recent experience from his own life. I got a few businesses on Crenshaw and Slauson in the actual strip mall right there, he said, and the crowd just burst into applause. He says, I wasn't bragging. I wanted to make a point. Before Nipsey could continue, his easygoing reliability inspired a member of the audience to share his own testimony. The member of the audience said, that's what we need. A voice in the room yelled out, that's what we need. More businesses, more solid businesses that put Black people first. No question, Nipsey replied, because all them people want is money. The brother went on, his voice raising. Yeah, Nip said, letting him vent, which was a very good thing. I'm glad he did that. He says, y'all got the bread, the member in the audience, put it together, like you doing at Slauson and Crenshaw. The y'all he had in mind were not presumably people on this panel, but other members of the Black community, people who hadn't shown up for the community dialogue. Absolutely, Hussle affirmed. The gentleman said, we need solid physical results. It's time for our protest to match the physical work. You can't just be marching and then going home and nobody putting money together to buy nothing. Nipsey also said, that's right. Ceding the floor out of respect to the urgency of the man's message. Population of Los Angeles, 4.7 million Caucasian, 4.2 million Latino, and 800,000 Black people. The man stated down to the decimal as if all too familiar with the math. A Black man can't rent a room nowhere. Also said, that's right. He said, by this point, the audience member's voice was raw with emotion. The audience, the moderator, the other panelists sat in silence, witnessing a moment of public catarrhs. I can't rent a room, the man said in a summary, because none of my people don't own no effing homes. What could be realer than real estate? The search for a place was difficult even in one of Los Angeles' oldest Black neighborhoods, ravaged as it was by disinvestment and forces of gentrification. Nipsey Hussle said that's real, acknowledging the authenticity of the pain being shared. He said, that's real. That's a good point you make. The air seemed to flow back into the room as he resumed his own testimony. Nipsey said, the reason I brought it up, I was in that parking lot just passing through, and one of my people called me like, bro, police over here got somebody hemmed up, chill out. So I kicked it at the gas station for 5 minutes. Then I thought about it again. He's like, I'm not on probation. I'm not doing nothing wrong. But he took the feeling of the audience, let out a burst of tense laughter. He said, so I drove in. Nipsey continued. So soon as I drove in the parking lot, the police pulled him over. Routine so many times before that he engaged in. It was casual banter with the police officers. I let them do their procedure, he said, and they was getting ready to leave. They like, yeah, bro, I just want to give you a heads up. The city attorney has your store as one of the top 10 gang targets in Los Angeles. The audience let out a collective groan. Nipsey was like, so I'm like, why is that? And they started talking as he spoke. Hussle was back in the moment, stating his case all over again, this time to more receptive audience. Number one, it's very, very hard to start a business and be successful, especially if you don't come from business owners that have been successful. The crowd applauded in agreement. So we already dealt with that, and we dealt with that without no help from anybody. Number two, everybody that worked for his store is from the area he stated, and if it wasn't, does he provided jobs for his community? And if it wasn't for this store, it might be a part of your problem. Louder applause happened after that. Number three, they're doing a big business development on Crenshaw and Slauson State of referring to $3 billion light rail project from LAX. They got all type of stuff getting built. Only time it's a problem is when we're doing it. Now, when the crowd was wide open, what happened when they built a Shell gas station on a Hungry, Harold's, or any one of those businesses? Hussle asked. That's not a gang hangout. Experience has taught Hussle that in the eyes of the LAPD, any man, woman, or child from the neighborhood could potentially be classified as a gang member, gang affiliated from a gang area, regardless of their actual character or intentions. Even the ACLU's federal lawsuit made its way through the courts. Gang injunctions and the beliefs that gave rise to them were still very much in force. So really what I want you guys to take from that, what I just stated, because there's a lot to take from that, but my perspective, the most part was what the gentleman yelled out in the crowd. Because once, we're in an election year, we're in September now in the midterm elections, which I really don't care about. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you vote. You know me. If you see my platform, I don't care about that. But this is just a message to the politicians that like to give lip service outside of economics. The guys like, hey, if people like me don't own anything, then people like me are going to be screwed, regardless who's sitting in the White House, governor's house, the mayor's house, regardless who's sitting in Congress. The beautiful thing about America is it's about capitalism. So ownership is a very important thing. Now, how big you own a house or a business, or how small, it doesn't matter, but you must own something. Even not everybody's going to own a business. Not everybody's even going to be a homeowner, but you should at least own some stocks, own some crypto, own some bonds. I'm not telling you, I'm not giving out financial advice, but the only advice I'm giving out is if you're not owning any sort of asset on any level in the United States of America, regardless of your political feelings, you are essentially screwed. And there's no other way to put it. There was a time frame when during the baby boomer years when there were actual pensions and more secure jobs where you had the opportunity to just work a job, work 40 hours a week, and you were going to be fine. You do it for 20, 30 years and you have enough in your Social Security, have a big pension. And if you had any other retirement savings or investments or whatnot, you'd be even further ahead than most people and whatnot. But we know those days aren't over. Those days are over with. Retirements don't exist. You only have quote unquote pension plans. I'm sorry, retirement plans, not pension plans. And it's all about how you and about the amount of contributions you make those specific plans and how you manage those specific plans. And even then, depend if you have a good plan or a bad plan, the fees could be outrageous, the fees could be decent. But what are you investing your money in? But it doesn't matter where you live at. If you live in Michigan, California, New York, Georgia, Texas, it doesn't matter if you're not, because you have a lot of people that will leave the West Coast and go down south, leave the Midwest, leave the East Coast and go down south, and with not not going down there with an ownership mindset. Just a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people going down to those places with I'm just going to have a job and be a renter for the rest of my life mindset. As long as I can have a decent job and it's cheaper to live there, then okay, cool. But gentrification can happen anywhere. You see how it happened in LA, how it's happened in New York, how it's happened in Washington, D.C. It's happening in every major city in the United States of America. You cannot escape high cost of living. That's why when I hear people getting their political jargon and want to blame a politician, like, no, this is all about economics. This is all about who owns the land. Okay, whether it's a red state, blue state, or a purple state, all that is irrelevant. And the fact that people got priced out of LA is because, and the sadder thing is that in a place like LA back in the day, people had, even though LA's had its issues, trust me on that one, because there's no perfect city in this country, but there were more opportunities for people to own houses in Los Angeles than there were in New York City, because in LA, there was more houses than there were apartment buildings. You didn't have major apartment buildings like you would see in places like Chicago, New York, Newark, New Jersey, and especially big high-rise projects and things of that nature. You have very small, limited. It's you don't see most of the major apartment buildings are usually in downtown Los Angeles. If you go to South LA, East LA, West LA, it's usually small 2 to 3 level buildings and whatnot. Something you see in a regular suburb. So the opportunity to own any sort of real estate um, was there, and now it's overpriced because most of the houses cost. It could be a 1 bedroom and it costs probably $500,000, and if it's 3 bedrooms, it's probably gonna cost $1 million. So that's just what it is right now. But and I commend the African American businesses that still are in Los Angeles right now, and the people who own houses in Los Angeles. And if you're getting up in age, and you have children or grandchildren or cousins or whatever, get your wills, get your trust in, get with a financial professional, ensure that you're leaving that real estate to some, because if you own real estate in any major city in this country, you're sitting on a gold mine. I don't care if it's Dallas, Washington D.C., Houston, Las Vegas, Phoenix, L.A., Atlanta, Miami, New Orleans, New York, whatever. You're sitting on a gold mine, regardless of the situation. But I wanted to read that part of the book because that was very near and dear to my heart, because the guy was talking about, no more protests. But I always say, who you spend your money with, who you bank with, holds way more power than who you vote for. Now, this other part of the book I'm going to read is very important because it talks about getting to the crux of what Nipsey was trying to do, unfortunately, before he, rest his soul, before he got killed by that piece of crap. But I will say that the people, because you still have people that are in the music business making those kind of moves. Jay-Z, whether you love him or hate him, he's made a lot of economic business moves. He employs a lot of people. Damon Dash, who else? Jay Prince, Master P. They all are entrepreneurs and they have businesses and they're hiring people. And that's the one. Diddy, the same thing. 50 Cent, the same thing. So it's just because I remember I'm an 80s baby, and I remember, the late 90s, that was the bling bling era. Everybody was making the videos with the overpriced houses, nice cars, the jewelry and whatnot. And now we're in the financial literacy space where the amount of money that you make from your assets and the amount of money that's in your bank account matters to younger people way more than materialistic nonsense. And that is a beautiful thing. I'm glad that that's kind of, being away. Because even in my teens, I thought the whole bling bling thing was overrated. I'm just like, if I had that kind of money, I'm not spending on the freaking jewelry. That's just what it is. But some people like to be flashy. Some people want to have attention. But I've always been of the mindset is I'd rather have money in my bank account and money coming from assets to put myself in a position where I don't have to worry about having a job and whatnot, because that's the ultimate economic freedom that we have in today's world. But that's just one real thing that I really wanted to put into perspective. Okay. Last part I wanted to read. This is the part that really caught my eye. All right. Nipsey Hussle said, Gross and Hustle sought to galvanize a movement starting in the hometown and spreading across of America's Black metropolitan areas, known as such areas as Oakland, California, Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Memphis. The idea of buying back the block. And I support people that have that movement. I don't know where that started, but it's been ubiquitous in our culture. Gross said, Black excellence and ownership are what Nipsey preached and rapped about for his entire career. He did. And that's why I rocked with him, especially given the fact that most new rappers are just garbage in today's world. We figured the quickest way to shift the mindset and then shift the culture was to have a lot of people who help move culture. What Nip is to South Central, T.I. is to Atlanta, Meek Mill is to Philadelphia. Imagine if they were working together towards a common goal, except that his vision wasn't imaginary at all. It was already happening, and of course, Hustle was the driving force behind it. Just as NBA, as a players' association, hip hop had become big enough and powerful enough that it made sense for groups of artists to come together and make sure they were aligned for their best interests. Rock Nation was a prime example of what was possible, but there was much more work to be done. When somebody get in, we got to leave the door open, Hustle said. We got to carry that the right way. That's why me and YG, we saw what happened with Death Row out here. The street politics wasn't all the way sustainable, so it crumbled. And it's true because before I even go forward, if Suge Knight would have stopped trying to be a thug, Suge Knight could have been the next Diddy. That's the sad thing about Suge Knight and the nonsense that he was doing. Suge Knight could have and he already knew he had a target on his back, so he just made it easier because he wanted to be seen as Mr. Tough Guy. He could be out here right now like Irv Gotti, Diddy, and all the people that came up during his era and whatnot. He could have probably bought half of Compton with all the freaking money he had, but and created more businesses in Compton, but he was more concerned with playing street politics instead of being a businessman. So it is what it is, and now he might spend the rest of his life in freaking jail. And I'm not laughing about it because it's a sad thing. They had it in their, Tupac might still be alive. You never know. They had the vision and execution. It could have happened, but a lot of people just a lot of people just like this. And at the end of the day, who you hang out with is who you become, no matter how good your intentions are. If you got any bad people around me, around you, get them away from me. That's the advice I definitely put out there. If you got anybody who's a sloucher, who's not pulling their weight, and they want to be stuck in the same position that they were stuck in 10 years ago, get rid of them. Okay, because you can't evolve. There's a reason why Dre is where he's at and Snoop Dogg where they're at today. They had to evolve. They grew up as men. They have families. They have grandkids, and they're business moguls. So that says a lot about Snoop Dogg. That says a lot about Dr. Dre. Eventually, you got to grow up. So it is what it is. Okay. So with YG being a Blood and Nipsey being a Crip, he said we had to make sure as leaders it was the right way to do it from an LA perspective. And with hip hop in general, I mess with Meek Mills. We was just at the table yesterday. That's the type of conversations we having. Drake was at the table. Meek was at the table. T.I. was at the table. Jay Prince was at the table. Mustard was at the table. It's all like some Caroline Five Families, Coleon Five Families stuff. We really do it the right way and whatnot because they're all doing it from a legal perspective. He said, we're definitely come at it like a players association and make sure that it's fair. Now that Hustle had decoded the matrix of the music industry, his restless creativity was torn with other types of ventures. The next logical step for the kid who built his own computer to make his own beats was to make a foray into technology. He said, I want to get into tech for real. I got ideas I'm really passionate about. It reminded me a lot how I used to look at hip hop. I know I could add value. And I remember before, unfortunately, Nipsey got killed. They said it was hard at that time to get him in the studio because his vision was taken off. He was going way bigger than music. Music was becoming this important to him and whatnot. But his vision to build things, like he went overseas to create his own cryptocurrency. The vision to build things outside of music was a bigger thing. He was just way before his time on some real stuff. All right. Um, so I just have to give him praise in that aspect as well. He says, I know I could add value. So that's something that I want to use my platform as an artist and as someone that's got music attention to set the meetings up and have them combos and just do my due diligence and learn also. Although the mental divide was huge, Silicon Valley was just an hour away from LA by air. We supposed to be involved, Hussle insisted. We grew up in a generation of there was no computers at one time, and then there was computers. Yes, and that's true. I'm part of that same generation. He's like, you feel me? And I seen how me buying a computer and getting Pro Tools changed my life, and me learning how to engineer my own recordings impacted my life in a major way. So I want to be involved in that. Um, and obviously, he saw how Dr. Dre was doing great things with, Apple Music and whatnot, and he wanted to get his piece of the pie all at the same time. And he was meeting people at the Laker, it used to be the Staples Center, but now it's the Crypto.com Center. And he was always at Laker games, and he was, he was he was engaging with more and more people outside of the music industry. It's just like Tiffany Haddish recently was at a baseball game, and because she's trying to build a grocery store in her neighborhood in South Los Angeles, and she's trying to have a grocery store co-op. So who the better to deal with? She was having a business meeting at a baseball game with a person who owns a construction company and a person who's a major executive / CEO in the grocery store business industry. So it just in the grocery industry. So that just makes perfect sense. But at the end of the day, you're gonna take what you take from that book that I'm reading and my perspective from those specific areas. I have a funny feeling I'm almost done with this book. I'm gonna probably make another video about this. But at the end of the day, I will say that because that aspect of one aspect, the two aspects to take away from this is number one is if a politician comes up to you and say, what do African Americans really want? We'd like access to capital, better education when it comes to the tech industry, more access to being able to get training for skilled trades and things of that nature. When it comes to financial literacy, there's enough of that information out here in the real world online. And there's so many different schools that you can pay for, or there's just a lot of free education out there already. So, but access to capital, access to capital, access to capital, because you live in a capitalist country. It's all about business. That's why I love America, because it's about business. I love economics. I'm a geek about economics, and I leave it at that. But if a politician starts swaying in another direction when you have that conversation with them, then they're full of it. So because they're great, these people are great at practicing the art of nonsense and making you try to make you feel good and whatnot from an emotional standpoint. But I'm a grown man. I don't need to feel good. The bills got to get paid. So if I have a business and I'm running it, I want to be able to get access to capital so I can grow the business. So I commend even the banks that are out there recently that are working in partnership with other African American banks, like One United Industrial Bank, and that are giving other Black businesses access to capital, because that's what it's about right now. It is what it is. So that is the agenda, and I got nothing but love and respect for the people that are involved in that, and nothing but love and respect for the actors, rappers, and any other people who make millions of dollars a year that are building things and not just trying to be famous and look good and whatnot. Because the thing is, you don't even have to be. It's not about activism or anything like that. You don't even got to speak out about social issues and whatnot. When you build your economic house and you're providing jobs, that's the best sort of protest right there. You're not breaking any laws. You're a model citizen. And because corporations are people, you're adding value to the economy and whatnot. And because of that, Uncle Sam's going to reward people that do that. So it's to me, it's just a win-win situation. But the days of you balling out of control because you're an athlete and you're an actor or you're in the music industry, who cares? If you're not building anything of economic value, then who cares? You're just, to me, you're just a waste of space. You're good at what you do, and we'll leave it at that. But outside of that, what you say that means nothing. It's all about the action at this point. Like Tyler Perry doesn't have to do activism or whatnot. He owns his own freaking studio in Atlanta, Georgia. Dame Dash doesn't have to do activism. He owns his own studio in Los Angeles, California. That's why I don't like with Kanye West. I know he does certain great things, and I'm cool with that. But Kanye West is great at ensuring that he says something outrageous so people can talk about him. So that's his marketing platform. God bless him. He's a billionaire. Do what you do. Okay. But if you're not providing jobs for anybody, especially being a billionaire, it means nothing. If you're not giving people access to capital and whatnot, it means nothing. You know, Kanye West being, and I know he does that, and that's what matters. Like him being a billionaire, I don't have to see you talk. What are you doing? Okay. If you're doing great things in Chicago, cool. You know, I'm not mad at that because at the end of the day, if you're doing something from an economic standpoint that's helping provide jobs in the city that you come from, that's all that matters. Your politics means nothing to me. Your economic actions means everything. Okay. That's just what it is. If you're a Republican and you're creating jobs in your community, good for you. If you're a Democrat, you're doing the same thing, good for you. If you're independent, you're doing the same thing, good for you. All that political stuff is irrelevant. It's all about what you're doing from an economic standpoint, or as I like to call, voting with your dollars. Nipsey Hussle voted with his dollars, and his brother Black Sam is continuously voting with his dollars, and that's what I got respect for. And that's, if you want to get my vote, you're gonna vote with your dollars and not anything else. So on that note, do the great three things: like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys have a great day. Don't forget to check out my online store. If you're a stock market investor, crypto investor, individual retirement account investor, don't forget to check out Webull, Stash, Acorns, Crypto.com, Coinbase. All those links will be in the description. And as I always say, do the great three things: like, share, and subscribe. Make money moves, or you're gonna live world like a fool. Take care, family.